Back with WCW again. It's been a while, and I never mean to do that. I always intend to do at least one WCW and one TNA video each month, but due to some odd issues, we don't. In TNA's case, the episodes aren't on Impact Plus, and trying to find the stills and whatever is a struggle. WCW, though, that's a different story. Unlike the TNA videos, I actually have some things I've been working on. We got a couple of stuff, we got Luger and Hogan. This one's been on my computer for the longest time. I never recorded the audio, but I have everything in order to make it. And another video I've been working on is the whole white Hummer thing. And to be honest, I lost interest in the middle of it and was going to do it for the sake of it. But I will jump in, I'm going to jump back into it soon and finish it. But the reason why I stopped was because I didn't feel like it was the right time. Anyways, I chose this because it's iconic. The feud as a whole really brought out the best in Rey Mysterio Jr. and Eddie Guerrero. Whether it be in 1997 or 2004, these two always delivered when it mattered the most. Around this time period, both men were on the rise. Eddie finally turned heel and did some great work in ring. He was slowly finding his groove in the other areas, and as time went on, he was complete. Rey Mysterio, on the other hand, was a phenomenon. There weren't many guys out there that were capable of doing what he did. WCW Rey Mysterio is truly spectacular and was on a whole other level. There's no exaggeration there. This little kid comes in and captivates the audience effortlessly every single week. At least that's what it looks like to somebody at the time. So around this time period, both men were notable talent. Eddie was the US champion in the past, but here he was setting his sights on the Cruiserweight Championship. The division as a whole was in its golden age, as talents such as Ultimo Dragon, Psychosis, Chris Jericho were a part of this division, putting on some very good matches on a weekly basis. Rey Mysterio Jr. was doing well here, and he had been champion in the past, but was just floating around after returning from injury. On the September 8th, 1997 episode of Nitro, Eddie and Rey had a match. It's as simple as that. The action itself here was slick and pretty damn fast. Guerrero managed to isolate Rey and go after the arm, but Mysterio overcame this and quickened the pace. He was out here jumping around like Spider-Man, but Eddie had him. He hit this very impactful powerbomb, but it wasn't enough for the three. Eddie went working on the back again, as he did earlier, and it was all about wearing down Rey and preventing him from breaking through. Unfortunately for himself, he looked away for only a second and hit this slick-ass seated senton into a hurricanrana to beat Eddie Guerrero. Good match. But it's Eddie and Rey. It'll be like saying WWE 2K20 sucks. We already know this. If you want the details, they managed to construct something despite the length, which was about 5 minutes. And because of the length, they made the most out of every second and told a little story. I should also note that it served as a light version, a trial version of their Halloween Havoc match. Eddie was out there targeting the back and trying to stop this full-on attack from Rey, but he failed. At Fall Brawl, Eddie Guerrero captured the Cruiserweight Championship. Since Rey was back and he had momentum, it was clear that these two were going to face off. During Rey's match with Silver King, the new champion opted to pay a visit. The fans shouted Guerrero with an Eddie sucks chant. Rey got distracted, but he didn't lose because he had the #1 contender boost. All Guerrero did was come out, get trashed by the fans, and take a splash. That's literally it. The following week, Rey was set to face off somebody called El Caliente. Nobody knew who he was, but his build was extremely similar to Black Tiger 2. He quickly attacked before the match even began, but Rey caught up. Other than being dressed in red and green, El Caliente's moveset was exactly like Eddie Guerrero's. Obviously you know why, but anyways, he was hellbent on masking Rey, which according to the commentary wasn't exactly a thing that luchadors do. They also sensed it was Eddie Guerrero but never outright said it. Fans though knew it was him, and at this point he was exposed like Tom McGee. Rey ended up adapting and won it with the Hurricanrana. He then pulled the mask, and there he was, Eddie Guerrero, the Cruiserweight Champion. This basically made Rey the next contender for the title because he beat the champion, and soon enough it was confirmed that these two were facing off. It was going to be mask versus title. Eddie at this point was somewhat violating protocol by going after Rey's mask, and even tried to do the same to Psychosis but failed. At this point you're thinking, oh, Rey's had the advantage. When's Eddie gonna bounce back? Later that night, Dean Malenko faced Rey, and during this match, once again, Rey Jr. showed some of that world-class athleticism, and before he could win it, Eddie Guerrero came in and snatched that mask like WWE snatched Big E's push. So basically, he's showing that he's got the edge here. During the build to the match, Rey didn't exactly show the most confidence. He was worried, doing the soft talk.
They could beat you, and this thing comes off. That could be the end of my career.
Nope.
Eddie once again haunted him by costing him the TV title, and of course he failed to take away the mask here. In the back though, Eric Bischoff was on a mission to unmask a bunch of the guys. Men such as Juventud and Rey had to give in, but here, Rey was adamant that he did not want to go through with it. The mask was a huge part of his identity, the moment he takes it off, his career's changed forever. Is Eric Bischoff going to help afterwards? They just saw it as a mask, but to Rey, it was much more than that. The original plan at the time was to have Rey Mysterio Jr. unmasked, and I said it in this video, but this is how it goes. So one day, Scott Hall comes up to Rey and is like, "Oh, you're a pretty mother... Why don't you guys have him do commercials?" Eventually this caught fire, and Kevin Nash ended up informing Rey, "Hey, they're taking the mask." Despite this, Nash knew that Rey didn't want to go through with it and suggested he get a doctor's note or something. A few days pass and it's Friday. Rey's getting ready for Halloween Havoc in Vegas when the phone rings. And these are his words quote for quote. "I never pick up my phone at home, but that day I happened to." Eric said hello. "Hey Eric, how you doing? I heard you're not going to be at Halloween Havoc. Well, that is my plan. I just want to let you know that if you do not show up, you're in breach of contract, and I'll fire you. Wait, hold on. You want me to take off my mask? And I'm not cool with that. You're going to do what you're told, and you have nothing to say about that. So you better show up, and you better be there for the pay-per-view. Well, what if I don't show up? You just better show up. The conversation is still burned into my memory. He was pissed off, which looking back is kind of funny because I was the one who should be pissed off. Ray went on to add in another interview that Eddie wanted to aid him, and he would have even quit the match, but he didn't want to get him in that much trouble. At this point, Ray was torn and even asked Kevin Nash if he stood a chance in the WWF. Now, at the time, the company wasn't really focused on that. Like, Taka Michinoku was winning matches, but the lightweight division wasn't that big of a deal compared to the cruiserweight division in WCW. So Ray had to stay put. At this point, it was a foregone conclusion. Fast forward to the day of the match itself, Ray and Eddie are preparing. Latino Heat's telling Ray to focus and look past the mask. Eddie wanted to put on a show and prove that they're the best, when all of a sudden the result was changed and Ray is quoted as saying, "Motherfuckers. Were they f***ing with me all this time? What was the purpose of this? To test me? To get me down psychologically? To show me who was boss? To play with my mind?" I'm not sure to this day if it was a rib. They never came back and told me. I think they were serious from the start, but who knows? Maybe it's just been a shoot between Eric and myself. To what purpose? I have no idea. In all honesty, no one in the WCW hierarchy understood what the mask meant to me or what the tradition meant to Mexican wrestling fans. There was very little interest in any of us as individuals. It wasn't just me. Take a look at Chris Jericho's book or Eddie's, and you'll see they came away with the same conclusion. We were there to fill out a card and to basically do what they wanted when they thought of something. And the crazy part to me is that nobody knows why the result was changed. You know, it's very bizarre. But then again, bizarre is flying out Bret Hart, paying for his hotel, giving him a limo ride, and not using him on the show. Compared to that, this is normal for WCW standards. Alright, it's time. Halloween Havoc, Rey Mysterio mask, Eddie Guerrero title. This is my favorite WCW match of all time. It ain't the Flair and Steamboat trilogies, not Flair vs. Terry Funk, nor Raven Psychosis, but this. It's just iconic from the visuals to the story to the moves that they used to convey the story. Rey Mysterio came out as he usually did, but this time he had a unique outfit. He was dressed as a comic book character, the Phantom. Eddie had this amazing composed look that he just mastered at the time. It's like he didn't want to be there, and it felt like he treated Rey as somebody beneath him. This match has grown into a larger-than-life encounter as time goes on. It's always that one match that stands out when hearing WCW, the word cruiserweight, and just the mention of Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. Like, if I ask, hey, what's your favorite match of Rey Mysterio's career? Probably gonna say this match. Alright. Early on, Eddie got ahead of himself, and so Rey overwhelmed him with some very fast-paced offense. This hurt the challenger, though, as he took it one step too far. The champion was more methodical in his approach, and Rey was out here trying handsprings while he's out here going for backdrops and suplexes. Even though it was already stipulated, Eddie was out here trying to take off the mask. He was wearing down Rey, ripping the mask off, and he was out here multitasking. The backbreakers were incredibly painful for Rey, who made it seem like hell. Eddie sucks chant intensifies, and Rey from out of nowhere, though, hit this mesmerizing DDT, and once again, there's only one Rey Mysterio. Even then, it was still Eddie's match. He was out here locking in camel clutches, ripping off parts of the mask, and similar to earlier, Rey Jr. tried to make this quick attempt, but it didn't lead to much. Guerrero was far too dominant and aggressive, but his opening would come after the champion wasted too much time. Over the post, Rey leaps before dropping Eddie with his Hurricanrana, and he was 1 second away from victory, but it wasn't to be. Soon enough, though, Guerrero bounced back, and he was leaving his legs out there for that champion to grab. Then the best moment came, at least for me. This was the moment where Rey jumped over the top rope, and you're thinking it's a plancha, but no, this man catches Eddie with his legs and connects with the head scissors, and I'm just wondering, like, how in the hell is that possible? I don't know, but it showed that it certainly was. He was too ambitious here, and he ended up paying the price as Eddie caught him and hit this impactful powerbomb for a 2. It didn't mean much, though, because the match was in the final third. You know, they were going back and forth, they were kicking out of moves. Rey was going for springboards, Eddie was going for frog splash attempts, but neither connected. Then as the champion went for the Razor's Edge, Rey caught him with a super Hurricanrana from the top rope. 1, 2, 3, new champion. Perfect stuff. It's a must-watch because of how well it was constructed. Each man played their roles perfectly. The champion was just hell-bent on breaking that momentum and slowing down the pace, and Rey Jr., on the other hand, was going for what brought him to this point. He sold Eddie's offense while his moves were something else. They were out of this world. You know, that plancha into a head scissors just looks like a move from a video game. He was literally a real-life video game character. Eddie looked like the best pro wrestler out there in kayfabe. You know, used his mind very well and was fully focused on throwing Rey off his game by trying to rip the mask off, wearing him down. And the match itself ain't overrated or anything like that. It's just that damn good. It's an iconic match that holds up to this very day. And that tells you how good this match was. Because it happened in 1997, which was almost 25 years ago. And it holds up. Afterwards, Rey admitted that he shed tears, but before he could continue, the sore loser Eddie Guerrero attacked and threw him to the outside. A very spectacular match, and it's highly recommended you watch it if you haven't. It lasts 14 minutes, yet has more replay value than just about any match. Every second mattered, and watching the match, you can notice this. Like, these guys wanting to make every second matter. In Eddie Guerrero's book, Cheating, Death, Stealing Life, he spoke extremely positively about this match. We made a point of trying out innovative new moves, things we never even thought of before that match. Sometimes that can screw you up, but that night was special. Everything flowed, everything fell right into place, and at one point Ray did this awesome move flipping off the top rope and hitting a crazy backflip DDT on me. To this day, we haven't been able to duplicate it. We've tried, but it never comes off the way it did at Halloween Havoc, and it was just one of those nights. It turned out to be one of the best, most memorable matches of my career, and I'm usually pretty critical of my own work, especially in the matches that people consider to be classics, but whenever I watch that one, I just think, that was good. Ray and I knew we had ripped it up out there, but when we went to the back, there was hardly any reaction from the rest of the boys. A few of our friends came over and patted us on the back to say good match, but that was it. For the most part, everyone was pretty quiet and didn't say to us. That just confirmed in my mind, nothing says success quite like having top boys refuse to acknowledge you. Unfortunately, there's a lot more to the business than just having a good match. Even though we proved at Halloween Havoc that we could tear it up with the best of them, it did nothing to elevate us in the eyes of the company. Following the events of Halloween Havoc, Eddie bounced back by beating Chris Jericho, and soon enough the rematch was going to go down. The two men crossed paths the very following week in tag team action. Mysterio was out of this world as expected, but his ambitions were far too much here, and he accidentally blasted his partner, Steven Regal. Malenko, wanting the victory himself, in order to get a title shot, tagged Eddie out and won it with the Texas Cloverleaf. With the win, Eddie had some momentum by his side, although he wasn't that happy with Malenko. He got his rematch the very next week, and it was good. Of course, you're not going to expect it to be Halloween Havoc, because for one, it's a TV match, and two, Halloween Havoc is magical. Right out of the gate, Eddie connected with a dropkick before going for those devastating backbreakers. Soon enough, the pace quickened, and Ray was jumping from rope to rope, hitting L1 and X, doing whatever the hell he wanted. The challenger was making mistakes. Ray was connecting with springboard hurricanranas, and he was even wearing down Eddie at one point. But Latino, he had his knees up after a springboard, and he was now the aggressor. Powerbomb goes south, and once again, Mysterio went for yet another springboard, but the seated senton is unsuccessful, and then he goes up top. It's a brutal frog splash. 1, 2, 3, new champion. Before Eddie could even celebrate, Malenko put his name in the hat for title contention. Okay, this one was decent. Of course, it's a far cry to what they could truly do, and according to Eddie and Ray, they've always tried, but the magic wasn't there. Here, that's the same story. Ray was captivating. He was pulling out some random moves from out of nowhere. He turns from defense to offense in a second, and regardless of what they think, it's a good match. At their worst, they always have a good match. Like on a scale of 0 to 100, based on match rating, Eddie and Ray always start off as 60. With that said, they had one final match at World War III, and yes, it was great. These guys didn't have any promos to sell their match or anything like that. They just go out there and deliver. It's as simple as that. Alright. Quick exchanges early on, and Ray's got the slight edge. The champion was slightly overwhelmed and claimed that Ray pulled his hair. It was far too much here. Mean German suplex from Eddie, who was just trying to inflict damage. Incredible head scissors. Then Eddie caught Ray with a tilted world on the outside. A superplex inside the ring, and already he's going for the splash. Ray, though, had it scouted, but his hurricanrana wasn't enough here, and he ran into a flapjack. Similar to the previous matches, even when Ray was down, he'd find these moments where he would burst out. They weren't leading to much, though, here. However, Eddie gave Ray his opening by wasting too much time on a sunset flip powerbomb. Plancha off the top, and inside, the champion was taking a beating until he caught Rey Mysterio Jr. with a sudden powerbomb. Nonetheless, he adapted, and the win was in sight. From out of nowhere, he hit this front flip into the hurricanrana, and it looked like 3, but it wasn't. Because of this, he wanted to connect with yet another huge move, but Eddie caught him and hit the frog splash. 1, 2, 3. Good stuff. It's obviously not on the level of Halloween Havoc, it has to be said, but definitely some solid action. Ray's always exciting, and Eddie as his foil always works. It's a simple story, but they always do so well with it. Just because I thought this match was good didn't mean Eddie thought that as well. No matter how hard we tried, it just wasn't the same. Ray and I both wanted to top Halloween Havoc, but it just didn't happen. You can't force magic. Ended up being just an average match. It wasn't bad. I don't think Ray and I could have had a truly awful match. Even our average matches were pretty good. Ray and I were pretty disappointed. We knew that we had to raise people's expectations with Halloween Havoc. When you have a match like that, anything less is simply not going to cut it. You simply can't duplicate a special match like Halloween Havoc. There are so many elements that go into making a match, and every night there are different circumstances. There's no way to guarantee a classic match, and that's what makes them special. So there you have it. Eddie didn't really seem to enjoy this match as much as we did. I thought it was a good match. It's probably their second best WCW match, possibly. But yeah, the professionals are always hard on themselves. You'd be hearing Bret Hart say, oh, that wasn't a good match. Or Stone Cold, like he hates his WrestleMania 14 match, even though I thought that despite the issues, the circumstances, it was good. Alright, so that's the feud. These two would face off later on in 1998, and I was gonna include it, but that's more of an LWO storyline. Eddie wanted Ray by his side. He's annoying him. They had a couple of matches, and he ended up being forced to join the group. Overall, these guys always delivered. I watched every single match of this video from this feud, and they were all good. At the very least, they were good. Some of the matches were 5 minutes, some of them were 12, some of them were 14, but regardless, they were always good. Ray was out there exciting, Eddie was a great heel, and all you had to do was throw Eddie and Ray in there, and they'd do something. Hell, even though Ray had his issues before the Halloween Havoc match, he wasn't in the right place. Yeah, Eddie was like, hey, listen to me, keep your ears open, and they ended up having probably the greatest WCW match of all time. That's it for this video. I'll be back with more WCW stuff, of course. I always have an interest in doing the Filthy Animals, Scott Steiner's first title reign. There's a bunch of stuff we could do there, and it's just timing, you know. Like, I hope to do more of these. All right, what'd you guys think of Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero's feud in WCW? Please comment down below, and that's our first video. Make sure you hit the frog splash on the like button, and perhaps the hurricane on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.